Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Taylor Kenny with ITM Trading, coming to you live from beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. And yes, it is beautiful. It has been hot here, but not too hot, actually. We've been having some rain, which is a much needed break. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I see we already have a couple early joiners, some regulars, I believe. Gary, Silver Serpent. Silver Serpent, is that you? Who responded to me on X yesterday when I posted a picture of my new penny. I'm wondering if you're the same Silver Serpent. Let me know. All right, we have a couple people here. No soup. Lewis. Okay, Lewis took that away. Who else do we have? It's hotter than a cooked onion here. Oh boy, there we go. All right. And silver goes down today. Hilarious. Yeah, Yoga Army, we're definitely going to talk about silver and gold today. I know a lot of people out there are wondering what the heck is going on, right? Especially when we see those spot prices going down. So do not worry. We will be covering that and a lot more as well. All right. Let's see. Port Elizabeth, all the way from Port Elizabeth, saying hello. Hello, all. Welcome, welcome. Yoga Army, it's buying day. There we go. All right. I'm a regular watcher here. Welcome back, JD. Appreciate you being here. Thank you guys so much. Penny, yes, Lewis Brown. Thank you, thank you. In fact, while we let everyone join, because I want to give everyone just a minute, I have a ton of stuff prepared today. We're going to be talking all things gold, silver, reset, U.S. debt, triggers for the next stage of the reset, which I know is always a big question I get from all of you. So believe me, I have a ton I want to cover, but again, I want to give everyone just another minute to join. So let's see. Majestic Fox, always a fake reset with gold bugs just to trick more suckers. Well, that's an interesting take. I could see how you might feel that way, but stick around because we're going to talk about why the reset is not only happening right now, but accelerating. So I would actually love for you to stay till the end and see if maybe you change your thoughts on that because this is not new, right? The United States has not officially gone through the reset that's coming yet, right? We're in the process of one, but that official devaluation day has not happened yet, but it has happened in many other nations. And while many people think it will not happen here, I hear that all the time, there's a pattern that is followed, right? And we are following that same pattern that we've seen play out, whether it's Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, Mexico, right? Weimar Germany, the list goes on. And the United States really is no different. They are different because we have the global reserve currency. But again, I'm jumping ahead. We're going to get into all that. All right. Maryland in the house. Who else do we have? Yeah. Meanwhile, China is buying hand over fist. Yoga Army, you are reading my mind today because we're going to talk about China and the East and physical versus paper too. All right. Hello from Smoky, Michigan. Paul. Hopefully that means you guys aren't having any forest fires. I don't know. I grew up in Southern Oregon, and we had those all the time during the summer, which was always tough. Smash the like button, please. Heck yeah. All right. Thank you guys for being here. Perfect. Okay. Oh, we're getting the smoke from the Canada fires. I'm sorry to hear that. I know smoke can be the worst. Like I said, I had that a lot growing up in Southern Oregon. Welcome you guys again. Canada is on fire. I'm so sorry to hear that. I truly, fires are so devastating. So hopefully you guys are all okay. Northern Ontario, my heart goes out to everyone impacted by the fires joining today. Thank you guys for being with us. Twiggy, hi Taylor, finally made it to your live show. I watch your videos. Welcome, Twiggy. Okay, perfect. Well, I think we can probably go ahead and start getting ready here, diving on in. Yes, hello, Penny. Thank you. You guys know I love the Taylor Penny. In fact, I wanted to show you guys something. I posted this yesterday on X and on Instagram. I don't know if you guys can see it. The camera probably won't focus, but this is one of the last pennies minted. It was given to me as a gift. It's my birthday this weekend, actually, so it's a bit of an early birthday gift. You guys know how much the penny means to me in sentimental value. I saw someone comment, there's no real copper in that. You know, it's not worth anything. But the penny represents a lot to me from my childhood, my memories. I collect the flattened pennies, so just the coolest gift. Wanted to show you guys that. I'm going to put it up there behind me, but I just got this, so very cool. One of the last pennies. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. Oh, thank you for the happy early birthday. Appreciate that. Wonderful. Rush hour for the win. Yes, we have a gold rush hour coming out this Sunday. Actually, I know we've been on a bit of a summer schedule where we haven't been driving around as much in the heat, but we are going to be back on a regular cadence for everyone out there who watches Gold Rush Hour. So we will be back on that. Okay. Talk about the huge demand of silver needed for these insane data centers. Yeah, that is crazy. Silver demand, I mean, you guys know, we've been in a structural supply deficit for 6 years straight, right? The fundamentals have not changed and the mining supply cannot keep up with it and demand is only growing. You guys know how I feel about that, but we'll get into more specifics with gold and silver. Okay, perfect. Looks like we could go lower than $50 silver, going to scare a lot of investors. Yeah, we'll definitely talk about gold and silver prices today because I can tell that's top of everyone's mind. So let's go ahead and just kind of dive on into that, I guess. I mean, listen, I see the questions that come through all the time around gold and silver, right, over the last couple months. What's going on, right? How are these prices low? We're at war, right? We're at war. And, you know, it's kind of like, how is this possible? Because we know that the thesis for gold and silver have not changed. They're different, right? Because obviously silver is a dual metal. But as far as the thesis and the fundamentals for gold and silver, nothing has changed. So why then are they going down? Well, you know, we see that the markets still think, right, that inflation somehow is going to be kept under control, that the Fed's going to raise rates. We're going to look at the debt today and look at a couple other things. And realistically, we have this paper market that's obviously been controlling spot prices, but that also is changing. There's some big stuff happening over in the East right now we're going to look at. So lots to get into today. All right, let's see. 6-year running deficit. Yes, Yoga Army. Let's see. The Crimex is in hyper mode. Yes, absolutely. So for anyone out there who knows what we're talking about or is wondering what we're talking about, again, we're talking about paper versus physical, right? A piece of paper, we're talking about that's anything gold traded, right? Futures contracts, the like, versus physical gold. And I don't know if you guys have been following what's going on, okay? But July 24th, how many of you guys know what's going on July 24th? Because we're almost there. We've got some more bricks that are being laid in the wall that are going to move things from paper to physical. So I want to talk about that. So let me go ahead actually and pull this up for anyone who doesn't know. So I've reported on this. I do, bro. Welcome, bro, bro Joe. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so oh, and sorry, 45th birthday from the silencer. Happy birthday. Had to get that shout out in. Yes, China, paper from physical, China. Okay, so China obviously is coming for the precious metals market, right? They not only want to be the main gold and silver driver, right? They want to actually dictate price. They want to be in charge of settlement, clearing. They are making big moves, whether it's Hong Kong. We also have Dubai, Singapore, everything's moving east. It's not just China, right? But China, of course, is driving this. Now, something that's really interesting that's coming up here pretty soon is on July 24th, China is going to be changing the rules, okay? So when we talk about the Shanghai Gold Exchange, what they're going to be doing is stopping intermediary services. Essentially, they're going to prevent a lot of the short selling that's been going on, rolling over these paper contracts, okay? That doesn't mean that the spot price of gold and silver is going to go bananas overnight, but it is another brick in the wall that's being built, right? In the movement from paper to physical. Right now, the spot price we're seeing, right, it is not dictated by pure supply and demand of real precious metals. I think most of the people on here know that. But ultimately, right, we're moving towards more physical. And that's why if you look at the price differentials, right, between what's going on in the East and the West, right over here, right, look at this. This is for silver. We have Shanghai spot versus Western spot. Why is it that the East is always ahead, right? Everything we look at when we're in terms of what's moving east, they are coming for the physical market. And as we continue to chip away at that paper dominance, they're going to have a harder time suppressing those prices, right? So again, I'm not saying overnight everything's going to change. This is a real movement that's happening, you guys. Okay? Let's see. What else? What else is everyone saying? As I continue to go on. Tether has its gold vault in Switzerland. Yes, it does. They call it a James Bond bunker, which I've done some videos on before because I think it's interesting that you have Tether, right? For anyone who doesn't know, they have their gold stablecoin, but they also have the USD stablecoin, and all their profits are going straight into buying physical gold. And why? Well, their CEO even came out and said, because they're concerned about the monetary system. Okay, perfect. Let's see. How can silver price go down when it is a limited resource and demand is bigger than the annual amount mining? Do you think that we will come to a silver shortage that forces the price up? Yes. I mean, that again, the fundamentals have not changed, right? When we're talking about silver, there is a structural supply deficit, and we've been running it, like I said at the start of this, for 6 years straight, and demand is only increasing. So there will be a point where that will break. But again, right now, paper is dictating. And in gold too, if we're talking about gold, let me see if I have it up here. It's interesting. We're seeing a lot of retail selling in gold, right? This is GLD here. I pulled this up ahead of time. GLD, a record 14.4 billion of outflows since March 1st. But you're starting to see that kind of taper off here. But just because retail buyers are selling, probably not most of you on here. I mean, I hope not anyway, because what you bought it for has not happened yet. Central banks, as we know, are not slowing down their buying, right? China extends gold buying binge to 20th month amid Beijing's de-dollarization push. Okay, now all of this ties into the dollar, which all ties into our daily lives and our quality of lives, our standard of living, which I absolutely want to talk about. But let me just take a look over here as I continue to go. When is this paper Ponzi scheme ever going to end here in the West? That's a great question, the silencer. Ultimately, that is what the East is trying to do, right? We have the Crimex, as someone said earlier. We have the LBMA. Ultimately, all of these spot prices have been determined by Western institutions. That's how the game has gone. But now you have real competition coming from the East, okay? And it's not just one thing. They're attacking it from all angles. They're attacking it from all angles, and they're doing physical first, which has got to make you wonder, too. You think about China, right, coming out, and we know they're buying a ton of gold. How much more do we think they're actually buying than what's even being reported? I mean, that's just speculation. I'll put out that disclaimer, right? I don't actually know. But they have a track record. They have a history of buying a lot more than what they're saying. And I think it's also interesting. I don't know who else saw it yesterday, right? We had U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent come out, say that, tell me, did anyone see that clip before I explain it? Tell me if anyone saw him walking around. It was with someone from Fox News, and he came on and said, oh, yeah, we used to have currency that was backed by gold and silver. And then in the 70s, we went to fiat currency, which just meant that the gold and silver wasn't in the vault anymore. I mean, okay, give me a break. What an interesting description of fiat currency, right? I saw someone earlier said on here, the quote that's on my wall, actually on this currency wall of shame, paper money eventually returns to its intrinsic value, zero, right? Because fiat currency, what is it actually backed by? Nothing. Or I'm sorry, I should apologize, right? The full faith and credit of the U.S. government, because that makes me sleep well at night. I don't know about you guys. Yeah. Let's see who else. Yeah, he slipped on his words. Yeah, I saw. Yeah, it was kind of scary. It was kind of scary. It was kind of a creep. It was odd. But anyway, I don't want to. But watching it, then he was asked about the gold at Fort Knox and he said, well, the gold's there. And the reporter asked, well, have you actually been there? And he said, no, but the, Treasury has, and I can assure you it's all there. And we have the most gold in the world. I thought, what an interesting little propaganda spin. Because what happens when we don't have the most gold in the world? Like, again, I can't confirm or deny whether the gold is there, but what happens when the U.S. doesn't have the most gold in the world? Think about the U.S. having the global reserve currency. Okay, when Bretton Woods happened, why did the U.S. come out on top? Why did the rest of the world agree to have the dollar as the global reserve currency? Who had the most gold at that point in time? The United States, right? The United States had the most gold at that time, and that's what put them on top. Okay, then we have the 70s. You delink the dollar from gold, right? Effectively, the U.S. defaults on its promise to the rest of the world. Oh, you can convert your dollar reserves for gold. No more, right? Closes that window. Well, why does the world keep using it? Well, they already have it and they're stuck because of the petrodollar. Okay, the U.S. is crafty. They've been crafty for a long time. Okay, and I'm not saying that I know for sure they're not going to pull some more tricks out of their hat, but ultimately, it is interesting if you think we're coming out, we're saying we have the most gold, right? China, I believe, is secretly gold buying on top of 20 months straight of outwardly gold buying. Okay, what happens when China comes out and says, hey, we actually have the most gold? And we're the ones that are in a position of power here, right? He who has the gold makes the rules. Yeah. All right, let's see. Some people saying empty, we're just supposed to believe him. I wouldn't. Absolutely not. No, I mean, I literally laughed out loud when I saw that interview, actually. We don't have the most because we'd revalue the gold ASAP, Ryan Williams. Yeah, right. In order to revalue, you would think that probably there'd have to be some kind of audit done, but they're not doing one, despite all of the calls to do one. Why? Right? I don't know. That's my thoughts anyway. Okay, let's see. It's empty. We're cooked. When is gold going to 10K? You know, I try not to price speculate, but ultimately, again, we're going to look at some stuff today. I'm kind of just yapping here a little bit, but we're going to look at some stuff today of what's going on with the U.S. in just a minute. And when we do, too, we're going to see, again, the trajectory we're on. Because for anyone out there who's caught up in these short-term market movements, so much of the gold selling that's been going on is dictated by what's happening with the Federal Reserve, with Kevin Warsh, right? What's going on? And ultimately, people think that rates are going to stay high. And when we look at the debt, I mean, the U.S. is stuck in an impossible decision, you guys. They have two bad options, right? They can keep rates high. It's going to cost the U.S. a fortune when it comes to the debt. Or they lower rates, and we're going to see inflation get even worse, right? Not come back. I've seen some crazy articles this week. I think I have one or two pulled up. We can take a look at the propaganda machine is working overtime right now. Okay. Yeah, it's laughable. Let's see what else is going on here, you guys. Now they want to push stablecoins. Dystopian digital future incoming. Okay. If you ask me, you guys, I don't know who saw that they passed that law that, CBDC is banned till 2030. Yeah, that's a cover up. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw these kind of articles this week on the latest inflation data. Consumer prices fall. Consumer prices fall for the first time since the early days of COVID pandemic. But the war against high inflation isn't won. Yeah, no, you know what? Consumer prices didn't fall. Inflation just stopped going up as fast. That's what happened. Do not let them gaslight you. I know that WTF fall and the Fed. I love you guys. You guys are the best. Keep the comments coming, honestly. Yeah, send a little heart in there. Send a little thumbs up if you guys are, and the Fed, think that this is all BS and propaganda too. Abolish the Fed, shotgun sushi. If I said that right, no, I 100% am with you guys. They just changed the name. And you know what's going to happen too? Kevin Warsh has said as much. He's going to change the metrics with which they measure the inflation. You guys have been following that at all? Again, do not let them gaslight you into believing that when you go to the grocery store, right, and your cart is absolutely more than it was before. Consumer prices are not falling, okay? That's not what's happening. Yeah. And the Fed, everyone thinks, where do I think the actual numbers are? The actual numbers, the numbers they're giving us, BS, right? They come from the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, drop the L. That's what really the numbers are coming from. Yeah, 100%, you guys. Love the thumbs up. Thank you guys for the hearts. Yep. Changing the metrics means a new way to lie to us. They're just trying to come up with the best way to lie. That's what I agree to. I know. Okay, so they always do that. I know. I made a video, I think it was about 2 months ago, on Kevin Warsh because he actually has a really interesting background. But again, it's funny how people are absolutely convinced when they look at him or they listen to him talk, oh, this is going to be the change, right? He's going to be so tough on inflation, but ultimately he's he's in a lose-lose situation, right? And again, he's still working within the system. He's still working within the Fed. I don't know about you guys, but one person isn't going to come in here and change the train that's already left the station when it comes to the dollar. Okay. All the top banksters are drinking the chrome. Yeah, digital tracking and monitoring is how they hose you out of money. That's true. They sell it as convenience, right? They always sell it as convenience. And isn't it interesting, right, that we're moving closer and closer to this digital cashless society as a crisis is clearly brewing, right? Because if there's an affordability crisis, no one can afford anything. Do you think people are going to be more likely to accept free cash, right, from the government? That's what typically happens. Okay. Dear Taylor, I have a question. Since 6 months ago, an ounce of gold has decreased from 5,400 to 4,000. How long will this downward trend continue? You know, I don't think it's going to go on for that much longer personally. It does feel like we've kind of stabilized. Even if it does, there could be maybe one more event, something that happens that moves some people into treasuries. There's obviously a lot of shifting right now and liquidations happening as far as capital goes. But again, I'm not worried about it. And I know that it might sound funny because it's like, okay, the price has gone down from 5,400 to 4,000 for spot price of gold, right? But again, we're talking about a market that is dictated primarily on paper, not physical demand. And if we look at resets throughout history, we know where the prices are going. Okay, so I don't think so. Let's see. Taylor, you just convinced me. I picked up 60 more ounces of silver. Love to see it. Love to hear it. All right. Taylor, when it comes to buying fractional modern gold bullion and coins, do you like 1/10, 1/4, half-ounce gold? Silver Serpents, thanks again for joining. Great to see you again. It depends. I mean, I have a variety. I think, again, and this is not a cop-out answer, right? I have a little bit of everything. If you want to learn more about functionality or what works the best for you, I often get all these questions around buying plans, strategy. You can always call us at the number below because ultimately everyone's situation is different, right? We have a lot of clients that we work with who have completely different ways that they want to buy because it just depends on your own situation. If you've already been a stacker, if you want a second opinion on what you already have, or you're brand new, right? Everyone's a little bit different. So let's see. Awesome. Great. Okay. Let's see. Kyle, what gold and silver are safe from being confiscated? Yeah, confiscation, I know that's a big concern for a lot of people. Anyone who tells me that confiscation isn't ever going to happen, I always say, have you looked at our own history here in the United States, right? We're, of course, talking about back in the 30s when President Roosevelt repatriated the gold, right? Essentially gold confiscation laws. And that was all gold bullion. Now, rare and unusual coins were exempt. So, of course, that's why when I love my pre-33s, right, we're talking about confiscation. Now, the same thing applies to silver, too. Sometimes I get asked, do you think there could be silver confiscation? Absolutely. We were just talking earlier about the structural supply deficit for silver, right? I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that there's a case for gold and or silver confiscation again? If I think about gold confiscation, I think they'd probably start with any kind of, big depositories like ETFs potentially. But then if they wanted to go and do that with the citizens, and listen, it's not saying they're going to go door to door, knock and say, hand over your gold bullion, right? But if you went to sell because maybe we're on the other side of the reset, times are tough, right? Potentially it's going to be difficult to. That's what they did in the 30s. They were cracking down on the actual dealers, right? So there's a lot of history there, and we can talk more about it too if you guys are interested. Yep, I love the old lost in a boating accident. Darn it, that's a classic. That's a classic. All right, mini crabs in the chat. What's with the crabs, you guys? Love the little crabs. Did I miss something there? I don't know what it means, but I love it. Keep them coming. All right, perfect. Bought 20 Eagles today. Congratulations, Maccabees. Love it. Okay. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about the debt. And I know we always talk about the debt. Everyone knows about the debt, but listen, This impacts each and every one of us, and things are changing. It's not just the same old story, okay? So I saw this article today. Interest on the national debt now costs more than Medicare. Interest on the debt now costs more than Medicare, you guys. We've been talking on here for a while that the interest surpassed our total spending on defense. Now it's costing more than Medicare. Also, thank you for letting me know. International Stacker, whose mascot is the crab. I am familiar with International Stacker. Actually, one of my friends is friends with him. So shout out, welcome International Stacker crab community. Thank you guys for showing up today. Love that. Love all these little crabs. That's so fun. Awesome. Okay, perfect. Crustacean Nation, rise up. You guys are funny. I love it. Okay, so interest on the debt now costs more than Medicare. Okay, so for anyone who hasn't been following this, the U.S. Treasury has borrowed $155 billion per month of this fiscal year and is now paying $24 billion a week. Okay, you guys, so what that means is almost 60 to 65% of what we are borrowing. So everything the U.S. is borrowing right now, 60 to 65% is going just to servicing the interest. Just to servicing the interest. Okay, this is terrifying. The reason why this is so scary, okay, is that the U.S. for a long time has gone away with borrowing a lot because we're the global reserve currency. But what happens when that changes? What happens when that changes, okay? It's no secret that the debt has been skyrocketing. We actually have that little, let me see, where is it? Over here, debt clock down there at the bottom, right? Just ticking up, okay? So it's no secret that the debt's been rising, and we know it's been rising substantially since 2020. But if we look at the interest on the debt, look at this, it goes straight up. This is why the debt is accelerating so quickly, and why when we talk about interest rates and what's going to happen with the Fed, right? They're going to be forced at a certain point to cut rates so that we can borrow more at cheaper prices. The U.S. can't afford to keep these rates high, right? What does that mean for you, though? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for inflation? Okay? It ultimately means that inflation for you and I and everyone else out there is going to go straight up. And as the U.S. keeps borrowing more and more and more just to pay the interest on their debt, well, nations already don't want the U.S. debt. They're moving away from it, okay? So the silencer, will there be any rate hikes this year? You know, for me, I don't think so. I don't think we can afford to, quite literally. What number do you think? Let's see. No soup. Someone tell me what the soup is. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Dominitravon. Taylor, getting soup equals gifted membership, FYI. Okay. Stealing Dom's soup. They'll stop at nothing. You guys are so funny. You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. So yes, as far as everything that's going on here with the debt, you guys, this is really, again, the crux is this interest payments, because if we look at treasury yields, they're on the rise, okay? They're on the rise across the world, right? So there's a national debt problem that's happening globally. It's not just the US, okay? It's happening everywhere. We're seeing it all over. And it's not also just a debt problem for the US government. We're seeing a lot of issues, right, when it comes to the individual. I saw these articles just this morning. Millions of Americans take on debt and drain savings to afford food. Did you know that 1/4 of Americans right now are financing their groceries on credit cards and buy now, pay later, with the highest default rates since the great financial crisis? Okay? This is not something that's going to go away. And what's going to happen if the government is forced to step in? Okay? More spending, more debt. Ultimately, this is going to be worth less and less and less. That's why when we talk about gold and silver, right? Gold and silver, physical gold and silver, you want it instead of this. Yeah, throw it away. You don't even want that dollar because ultimately it's going to be worth less. Anyone who's saving in dollars, it's not going to do anything. No. I ghosted the press secretary to watch Penny. Thank you. Hopefully she forgives you for that. All right, let's see. My ounces, love Taylor, bring us the news with style. Awesome. Let's see. Shout out my ounces. Thanks, you guys. I personally use my ounces. I don't know. Is he on here? It's a website for anyone who doesn't know. Actually, I'll pull it up. Let me see if I can. It's awesome for stackers. Oh, sorry. Sorry, you guys. I already had some tabs pulled up, so I can't pull up my new ones on here. But check it out, myounces.com. I will plug that. Not sponsored, just a website I use for my own personal stacking and tracking. Very cool, and a lot of amazing charts in there, and really detail-oriented. So anyone who's on there. Okay, let's see. Finally, a live broadcast. Woohoo! Thank you, Magic, for joining. Appreciate it. Credit card debt and consumer debt too. Yes, absolutely. So we have both. Now, I'm not a fan of the Wall Street Journal personally at all, but I did see this too headline, and I just saw Americans are falling behind on their 1.25 trillion credit card bill. And again, the highest level of delinquencies since the great financial crisis, a pattern of survival debt. Okay, so we're starting this right now today with the most debt in history for Americans, right? Delinquencies hitting new levels. And at the same time, we have this record debt with record interest. And we have foreign nations who are no longer wanting to buy the debt. Instead, they're buying physical gold. What does that mean? What does that mean for what's coming next? Okay, if you look at a reset throughout history, right, in any other nation who's undergone a reset, they follow a pattern, right? It starts with fiat currency control, which is essentially getting the citizens off of any kind of true way to save your wealth, moving into inflation, right? Because that's what happens once everyone's using and saving in the currency into inflation. Then into hyperinflation, because inevitably the spending keeps going, right? And then eventually stage 4 is an official reset, which is a revaluation or devaluation of the currency, okay? That is the pattern that is followed again and again. And today, yes, we are in stage 2 inflation. The question I get is what would bring us to hyperinflation stage 3? And what I keep telling people is that the trigger is going to be this loss of global reserve currency status, all right? And for anyone out there, again, who thinks, well, that won't happen, why are all central banks? There's a survey done of central banks. I think it was 85 central banks. Basically, they all said, we are moving away from the dollar and we are moving into gold, okay? That is not stopping anytime soon. When that happens, the U.S. won't be able to export their dollars the same way. That impacts you and I directly here at home, okay? So let's see. What else is everyone saying over here? All right, let's see. Debt trap. Yeah, it's a debt doom loop, okay? That's what we're stuck in here, a debt doom loop. Penny, what was your latest stacking pickup? Silver or gold or both? For me, it was both. It depends on what's going on, but I typically always pick up a little bit of both. Would I do it? But it just depends. But for me, it was both. Let's see. Reset. Yes, it is true. I know there was someone who joined at the beginning of this. I don't know if they're still here, who said that a reset was not true. I don't know if you're still out there. If you are, let me know in the chat if you're still out there, because I would love to see what particular questions you have. I'm happy to answer them about the reset because it's what we study here at ITM Trading. It's what we do, right? We've been here for 30 years helping people prepare. And again, it's not some made up doom and gloomer thing, right? It's a real thing. You can ask reset survivors. I've talked to many myself personally, and it's very powerful when you hear what people have gone through who have survived a reset. All right, let's see. My ounces, some crabs in the chat. Love the little crabs. Okay, let's see. Petrodollar is done. Do you think the Arabs are going to buy T-bills after we got the strait closed? Yeah, petrodollar, I mean, listen, obviously the demand for oil and pricing oil in dollars is really what the dollar has been backed by. I always say the dollar was backed by gold, and it was backed by oil, right? In theory, that's what's kept the dollar alive. If you ask me, it's why, of course, we invaded Venezuela. In fact, Scott Bessent even said as much when they say the quiet part out loud. There was an interview that came out like 2 weeks ago. And he said basically, oh, we're in Venezuela now. We've got the oil over there and and Iran, right? And this and that and whatever. It's because China was working with Venezuela and there was a lot of oil being priced in yuan. And then you have China now with their gold corridor building a physical gold vault inside of Saudi Arabia's borders, right, for gold settlement of oil. That's chipping away at dollar dominance right and left. Yeah. So hyperinflation is on the way, James. Yeah. The thing with hyperinflation, you guys, and I'm going to get serious here for a minute. Every time you look at hyperinflation throughout history, anytime there's been hyperinflation, it happens like this. Okay. It happens like that. People think there's going to be a warning. There almost never is. Right? You see the signs, you see the pattern, but so many people try and time it. They try and time it. When the truth is, if you understand the patterns throughout history and you know what's coming next, you shouldn't be trying to time it, okay? Because you know how it's going to end. You know what's going to happen in a hyperinflation situation. It's not just the dollars in your wallet or your savings account, right? It's the currency, it's stocks, right? Real estate in hyperinflation. Not saying that real estate isn't a true tangible asset, right? But ultimately, there's always going to be a real price decline that's going to happen to real estate. So ultimately, you know where you want to be, okay, before the reset hits. That's the real thing. Yeah, Venezuela was a huge gold producer selling to China. That same interview with Scott Bessent I mentioned earlier too, where they were talking about Fort Knox and supposedly how all the gold is there. The interview cuts off right when they ask like, oh yeah, and we're going to get some gold from Venezuela too, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, strange, don't you think? Bingo. Bingo. All right, let's see. I'm the master of timing it. Okay, well, good for you. Let's see. John Paul Gonzalez said, what is a reset? So funny because and this is not, Paul, I appreciate you asking the question because it's a valid question. It's probably the number one question I get asked. I answer it all the time, but it just goes to show too how many people are out there new and just discovering this. So welcome, Paul. I appreciate you being here. A reset is both a process and event, okay? The process is essentially where the currency continues to lose value because of an overprinting, right? An overspending, devaluation of the currency, and a loss of confidence in the currency. And then the official event of a reset is typically like an overnight one-day event, right? Where maybe those in power come out onto your TV, there's an announcement, they won't call it a reset. What they're gonna say is they're doing something to stabilize the system. And when they say that, you know you're in trouble, okay? If they tell you they're stabilizing the system, they're gonna revalue the dollar or whatever currency, let's say 10-1. So if you had $100,000 in your bank account, the reset happens. Now you have $10,000 in your bank account. Okay, that is the reset. And it is the inevitable path that happens for all countries who, again, go through this extreme currency printing devaluation of the currency. All right. Fern Vid explained it so great. Yes, shout out to Fern. We're talking about Fernando, one of our expert analysts here at ITM. He and I did a video together a couple weeks ago about the reset. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you do. It was terrific. He has a lot of personal experience coming from the Mexico reset, so definitely go watch that. I also have another exciting video I'm going to plug coming out this Tuesday with another one of our expert analysts, Keely Cole. I'm very excited about as well. We're going to be talking about debt in a reset. She has a lot of background in contracts, mortgages, banking, you name it. So very excited to show that as well. Okay, perfect. Let's see. Wow, they're really running it down. You're an excellent host. Thank you so much, Beacon. Appreciate that. Appreciate the shout out. Are you worried about the Rickards July 29th warning? And if it happens, July 29th warning, I apologize. I'm not up to date on that. Jim Rickards, I'm guessing is who you're talking about, what warning he is referring to. Let me know, Bailey, because I want to know. I'll look it up afterwards. Apologies for not knowing that. Let's see. Are ITM phones smoking? Yoga Army, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Maybe you mean people calling in. listen, we love to hear from you guys. Again, the phone number's on the screen. That's what we're here for. We have an incredible team. I say that all the time, but it's one of the reasons I'm so excited that we had Fernando on. We're having Keely on. We have a awesome team. I know today, at least for me, I call most companies and you get that AI assistant, which drives me absolutely nuts. I'm always like 0000000 trying to get through, but it seems like they're blocking that now too. They force you to go through the AI branch. But if you call us, you're talking to a real person who I am telling you has years and years of experience in helping people and studies these resets. So call us if you have any questions at all. Get Donna on the show. Yes, shout out Donna. I'm telling you guys, we have an incredible team here. They're all amazing. I would love nothing more. Thank you for that. Maybe we can peer pressure her to come on. I'm going to let her know you said that. The Dew priest. I'm going to let her know. Okay. Let's see. Balin, Yoga, Army. We're talking about Balins now. Whew, yeah. A lot of people are concerned about Balins. For anyone who's not familiar with what a Balin is, we're talking about banks here. Okay. Big bank risk. Bank risk did not disappear, contrary to what a family friend told me the other day. He literally looked me in the eyes and said, "What are you talking about? The banks are fine." He said, "They put regulation in place after 2008. They're in a much better position now than they were before." I almost fell out of my chair. I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on that. But I quite literally almost fell out of my chair. And I was trying not to laugh because, again, I'm all about education and having a good discussion with someone. But I had to sit him down and say, like, listen, I'm not going to out him. But I said, I understand why you might think that. There were regulations put in place following 2008. But one of those is they changed the rules, not to help you and I, but to help themselves. Not to prevent the next crisis, but to position themselves for when the crisis inevitably hits. Okay, and we're talking about, of course, Dodd-Frank. We're talking about bank bail-in legislation. So essentially what it means is instead of a bailout, right, where they use taxpayer funds or they borrow money, right, to bail out the system, a bank bail-in is when they legally freeze and seize your deposits to make themselves whole. And if you don't believe me, look it up. It's happened in Lebanon, it's happened in Greece, and it is fully legal here in the United States. And I see people, because in this conversation, he goes to me, he goes, "Well, what about Silicon Valley Bank a couple of years ago? Everyone was bailed out, even over the 250, right? Talking about the FDIC. Even over the 250, everyone was bailed out." I said, "Yeah, why do you think they did that? You think that the U.S. is stupid enough, right? Those at the top are going to let everyone panic and have a bank run? No. Of course they're going to bail everyone out, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure that those banks aren't going under. Because the truth is, right, they've been backdoor helping these banks for years. Following 2020, right, all these banks had all these deposits. What did they do? They put it into commercial real estate. They put it into U.S. treasuries, right? All these things. And then what happened? Well, the yields on the treasuries went up. So suddenly, all those bonds they were holding, well, they're worth significantly less. We know what's going on with commercial real estate. That's another ticking time bomb in the system. No, the banks have a lifeline that's happening right now. Does not mean they're healthy. In fact, derivative exposure has only increased since 2008, and it's happening at a rapid pace. They are rolling back the regulations, you guys. Seriously, look it up. They are rolling back banking regulations right now at an alarming pace, which I don't want to get too conspiratorial on here, but it kind of makes you wonder, are they running it up before they know what's coming next, right? Are they out for all they can get right now because that's how close we are? I don't know, but food for thought. All right, let's see. Yeah. Edward Griffin. Yes, of course. We're talking about The Creature from Jekyll Island. I've got it right there. The author from The Creature of Jekyll Island. If you guys have not read that, an amazing fundamental book. Definitely read it. They laughed at us. Yeah, people laugh. Let them laugh. That's what I say anyway. I mean, again, I was just telling you about my family friend I was talking to. If you talk to someone in I say my real life, this is all real life, obviously, but I guess I mean, I have a lot of people I work with, and I have my industry friends that I've made, but I still have a lot of friends that walk around and have no idea what's going on, right? And when I try and tell them what's happening, they don't either want to hear it or they don't believe it. And that's okay. I think if people are ready to hear it or they want to accept it or you can help change the mind a little bit, amazing. That's what I do on here every day, right? Is I hope I can get through to someone. But if someone's out there laughing, it's shame on, it's just too bad because we all know what's coming and the time to get protected is now. So let's see. For our safety, that will be us. Let's see. If I win the lottery, there will be signs. I never watch TV. I'm guessing lots of gold and silver. Let's see. Normalcy bias. Yes. Very familiar. Everyone. Taylor, your reference to people buying food on their credit cards does not mean they have no cash. A lot of people buy everything on credit cards for points. Also, most people pay off monthly. Yes, Wayne, that is a good point. I'm definitely not saying that everyone who uses a credit card is massively indebted or can't afford to pay it off. But I don't know if you heard me say earlier, the amount of delinquencies happening right now is at its highest point since 2008. So we know that there are more people, right, falling behind today than there have been in the last, what is that? 20 years almost. Is that not crazy? So we know a lot of people are struggling to pay off those credit card bills. Unfortunately, not everyone's out there doing it for points. We also can see that in other areas too. If you look at early retirement withdrawals, that's happening at a record pace. More and more people are withdrawing their 401ks or retirement early for financial hardship. It's really tough. Savings are basically at nothing. So it's not just the credit cards, because that is a really good call out. Thank you for that. It's multiple areas. And if you look across the board, you can see it really paints a picture of how much many American people are struggling. And I know there's a lot of talk around this K-shape or I-shape economy, right? You have the haves and the have-nots, a tale of two economies, if you will. It's very real. And it makes sense because there's a growing divide between the haves and the have-nots, right? The rich keep getting richer is really what's going on right now. All the elites, yes. Yep. Let's see. If they reset the currency, what will be the likely ratio? That's a great question. I mean, we normally use the example of 10-1, but it really depends. If you look at Venezuela, actually, as a prime example of currency resets, what's tough about a reset is it never actually solves the problem, okay? So in Venezuela, I believe that they had something like over the course of 15 years, it was like 4 resets, right? Like they had to keep resetting it. So it's like, oh, we're going to lop off 3 zeros. Then we're going to lop off 6 zeros. Then we're going to lop off another 3 zeros every couple of years. Because the underlying crisis of the overprinting, the damage was done. The damage was done. So oftentimes with resets, it's not even just a one and done, right? There might be that initial reset. There might be more. So it just depends. It's different across the board. That's a great question. All right, let's see. Elites aren't panicking. They're positioning. Yes, Darlene. And ultimately, I say the same thing about central banks, right? With their gold buying. Okay. Nothing that we talk about on here is meant to be panicky. Okay. Is it scary? Sure. Yeah, of course. You can't talk about banks, seizing your deposits or your currency being devalued without there being some fear in there. But at the same time, we're coming from a place of historical understanding and preparedness, right? That's really all it is getting in position now. So that's really what this comes down to. The central banks, they're not panicking, they're positioning, right? They're not just diversifying, they're positioning for what's coming next, a new monetary system. All right. Could Venezuela and Germany happen to us? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, of course. Let's see. Taylor, would you ever do a live or a video on living off metals during a reset? Yeah, I'm sure things, I mean, if there was came out and we had that official reset day, if that happened tomorrow, believe me, I'm sure the type of content that I would be putting out would absolutely change. That is for sure. That is for sure. Let's see. So hard to explain it to my father to get him to buy some gold. I understand. I feel your pain. Not everyone gets it. Even people I've been talking to in my family for years who say they understand still sometimes struggle. The only thing I would say is give your father grace, right? Because it's not something that we were taught. It goes against a lot of what the mainstream propaganda has put into our heads, right? What are we told? Sorry, I threw this away earlier. That this is money, and this is gold, and this is silver. But what is this actually? This is money, and this is currency, right? What's the difference between currency and money? And I know this is elementary, right? But what's the difference? What's the difference? They share most of all the same properties, except for one important property, right? A true store of value. This is not a true store of value. This is. So in actually this weekend's Gold Rush Hour, I said this with Eric, but I really like the way Eric says this. He said, you're not buying gold and silver, right, with this. You're converting your fiat dollars that are going to be worth less, right, into real money. That's the way I look at it. The path out. Yes, the path out. Us stackers know the difference. I know that's right. No, that's toilet paper, Monopoly money. I love it. You guys keep it coming. Yep. I can only get 1 out of my 4 kids to buy precious metals. Paul, same kind of story. Listen, I share the story all the time about my grandpa, right? I had sound money education growing up, okay? And it still took me a while for those lessons to really settle. So just because right now, maybe your other 3 children aren't interested, doesn't mean that later on something isn't going to click for them, right? They have that light bulb moment. That's what I always call it, a light bulb moment. And I always talk to people about this, where it's like one day it just kind of clicks. And all of a sudden, once it clicks, right, it will never unclick. So be patient with them. Keep fighting the good fight. Okay, let's see. How many more years of reset warnings before it actually happens? Mark, I know that is the million-ounce question, right? How many more? When is the reset going to happen? And like I always say, I don't have a crystal ball. But again, all of the triggers we've been talking about today, they're happening. They're happening. They can only play, extend, and pretend so long, right? The game can't go on forever, is the truth. It can't. So let's see. Million ounce. Yes. I stopped saying $1 million because it's not worth that much to me, but million ounce sure is. Absolutely. Did she discuss why silver and gold are down right now despite inflation getting worse? Yes, I did. For anyone joining right now, I did obviously kick off with that because I know that's what everyone's wondering. But again, it is a lot of short-term moves that are impacting gold and silver. I assumed today when I woke up and saw, where gold and silver were, that everyone would come on and want to know, which I understand. Because I think, again, what we're seeing right now is normal in the sense that, okay, so we have soft gold and silver. There are short-term selling going on in retail, right? We have everyone thinking that the rates are going to stay high or elevated, that inflation is going to come under control, but the fundamentals have not changed. And on top of it, we have this massive paper market manipulation going on, but that's just spot price. If you know where gold and silver are going next, it doesn't matter that much, right? Like the gold and silver I have tucked away, I don't worry about it because let me show you guys something here. I have a couple charts here pulled up, right? These are essentially gold prices during resets, okay? And there are many resets that we study here, but whether it's Venezuela, right, jumping up significantly, same, of course, Weimar is one of the most famous examples. You talk about baskets, wheelbarrows of cash, or a loaf of bread going from 100 marks to 200 billion marks. Well, what about gold? Gold absolutely surges. And again, it's not just one example, right? Mexico's the same. When we look at the peso crisis, right? The reset that happened in Mexico, it's the same thing, a 10x for gold. So ultimately, if you know that this is where we're heading next, if you know that we're going to be going through a reset, well, then you know where gold is coming. So that's really really everything that's happening right now, it's just short term. And again, I know it's easy to say that. I understand that for some people, it's really tough because you see it and it doesn't make sense. We're at war, inflation is going up. These are the reasons I bought it. But understand that the fundamentals have not changed, right? This debt and the interest on the debt has not changed. Central banks moving away from the dollar, de-dollarizing, right? Chipping away at that dollar dominance and moving into gold has not changed. These central banks, this is the signal. These are the ones who create the currency, and they don't even want the currency. We're not even just talking about the dollar. We're talking about all fiat currency. They want the real deal. They want the real deal. Yeah. All right. Let's see. It's science. If too many people get wise to this, we won't be able to get precious metals. So be careful what we wish for. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Like for me, I want everyone to wake up and I want everyone to understand what's coming next. But there will be a window of time, right? It won't last forever. It doesn't mean that you can't buy gold and silver in the future. It just means that you will be able to buy less, right? It will be more expensive. And that will be really tough because there will be a point where you'll wish all you had was gold and silver. That's what we've seen play out throughout history. So it will always probably be available. It's just at what price, right? That's the truth. So Penny, thank you, Richie, for the penny shout out. Let's see, Daniela shout out. What else do we have on here? When hyperinflation hits like a bomb, it will be too late. That is true. All right. You talk about crypto being a big part of the reset, Bobby. What do you mean by that exactly? Are we talking about stable coins in particular? Are we talking about crypto in general? There's a lot that we could unpack there depending on which direction we're going in. Bobby, if you want to send a follow-up question there. We've all been brainwashed, James. Yes, we have. They're working hard to keep us asleep. That's true. Let's see. Christine Lagarde. Europe's a scary one, you guys. Some of the stuff that's going on over there, if you look at that as a blueprint or for where we could be going next, talking again about that digital control, right? They're ahead of us, that's for sure, whether it's the digital IDs or the rollout of a CBDC, right? But total control incoming. And you just can't imagine that the U.S. is sitting here thinking that we'll be that far behind them. That's for sure. Yeah, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. I know the camera gets out of focus when I pull this up, but this silver round, I love it. It's an ITM silver round. If you guys can see that, says if you don't hold it, you don't own it. So that is true. Shout out. Fact. Yes. All right. What other questions do you guys have today? Banks, nothing to see here while they pile up on physical gold. Isn't it funny how that works? Isn't that funny? Yeah. Real money life. How will you be able to use it? That's a great question. Okay. So for gold and silver, I think about them with functionality. Silver is more my daily driver, right? Silver is what I'm going to be using. I use the word barter, but it's not just barter, right? You could barter with anything. But like if I'm buying groceries, right? Be using my silver. Gold, at the price gold's going to be on the other side of the reset. Gold is what you could use to pay off your property taxes or create opportunity on the other side of the reset. Like I mentioned earlier, you see real estate businesses basically reduced to nothing. Now, while that's obviously a tragedy because a lot of people are going to get really hurt, it does create a lot of opportunity on the other side of the reset for those who are positioned ahead of time. Okay, so when people ask me, oh, should I sell right now? No, the time to sell isn't now because what you bought it for hasn't happened yet. But when it happens, you'll be prepared and you'll be able to, again, have those opportunities to use it how you want. All right. Let's see what else. What about the suspension of retail gold trading in China? July 24th next week. D Nomad, Rich G. Yes, I talked about that a little bit earlier. For anyone who has just joined, essentially July 24th, there's going to be some big moves happening in the East, okay? So it's going to be another brick in the wall of moving from paper to physical. Now, I'm not saying that that means that spot prices will shoot up overnight or that the paper markets will stop, right? Influencing spot price the way they have, manipulating spot price the way they have. But absolutely, what it really does mean, right, is it's just another brick in the wall towards physical, because now you're going to have a situation where when these future contracts happen, they can't roll them over the same way. They can't short them. Most of the contracts that happen, you guys, around gold and silver, no physical metal, no metals ever touched, no metals ever delivered. Okay, so that gives the illusion of there being far more supply than there is demand, when in reality, we know that that's not the truth. Okay, so this is going to help chip away at this and continue to put the East as the center of physical gold and silver. Okay, let's see. What other questions do we have? Drives me crazy when people only talk about precious metals as an investment. It's insurance. It is insurance. It's your insurance policy against what's coming next. It's an investment too. Of course, I'm not saying they're not going to go up. Absolutely. Heck yeah. But it's your insurance policy against what's coming next. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? DTCC just started tokenizing yesterday, soft launch. Yes, Bobby, I saw that. Going full scale in October. Yes, a key part of the reset, definitely. When people ask me about the digital dollar, about total digital control, which I know is a big concern of a lot of different people on here, it is for me, absolutely, because not that cash is king by any means, right? Or that the dollars we have right now, the zeros and ones in our bank account, mean that much. But once we have fully programmable, right, currency, what that means is that you lose your freedom, you lose your privacy. It could mean that they could just shut the exits to buy gold and silver, right? It could mean that you post something on social media they don't like and suddenly you're blocked from traveling. It could mean that there's a negative interest rate on your savings because they need you to spend to stimulate the economy. Okay, we saw what happened with the trucker convoy in Canada. Whether you agree with it or not, politically is not the point. The point is that they froze, right, these bank accounts because they disagreed. And that took them not that long, but it still was a process. Still had to go through humans, still had to go through different departments and institutions. What happens when they can do it with the push of a button? Or what happens when it's not even they, right? When it's not even a person on the other side of that button push? What happens when it's an algorithm scrubbing the internet, scanning, and deciding that for you? Now that's spooky. That gives me goosebumps, okay? That's really the truth of where we're heading next. As far as the DTC goes, where is that? DTC, it's interesting because we talk about ownership a lot, right? And I don't know how many of you guys have seen The Great Taking, right? I see Yoga Army, The Great Taking, David Webb. But we really don't own a lot of what we think we own, right? And that goes back to that, if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Back in, what was it, the 50s, the 60s, right, with stocks, you had stock certificates. And then there was the great, everything went digital. So when that happened, what did that mean? Well, suddenly the ownership started to change state by state by state. And again, if you haven't seen The Great Taking, it's both a book and a documentary by David Webb. He is incredibly talented. The book is free online. He has a PDF version. If you Google it, you can find it. It's a little hard to find, but you can find it. And the documentary is free on YouTube. But essentially, it's an illusion of ownership. So what they did is they changed all the laws. They consolidated, right, all the ownership, moved it up the clearing line, boop. And then what you have is just a claim. It's just a claim on your stocks. So you might think they're yours. You see them, you log in, you see them in your bank account. Doesn't mean anything, right? If there's insolvency, even in the case of fraud, you're going to be the last one in line. And let me let you in on a secret. You're not going to get anything because you don't have the power, right? The elites, those in front of you, those at the top, they're going to be the ones who take all the assets and clear the board, as he says, right? He uses this analogy of like the Monopoly board. All goes back to those in power, those at the top. Everyone else, good luck. Okay? Let's see. Taylor's favorite silver earrings. Haha. These are actually gold, real gold, but I do love silver and gold. I wear both. This is silver. Let's see. There will be no U.S. reset. The BRICS nations will back the yuan with gold. Welcome to the new world monetary system reset. Wayne, that's a good idea. I mean, good suggestion anyway. That's what they're trying to do. But we'll see. Fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Other nations aren't going to want to just move into another currency, right? If the dollar's dethroned, the last thing they want is to make the same mistake again and let China be the world superpower. Now, maybe they won't have a choice, right? Maybe it will be multiple currencies. I don't know. But we do know that gold will be at the center of it. That is for sure. Okay. Let's see. Protecting what we worked hard to earn. Absolutely. Thoughts on the possibility of a currency reset when we are forced into CBDCs with a limited window to redeem cash for digital dollars? Yeah, that could definitely happen. Silver Serpents, that could definitely happen. I think in terms of a CBDC, and I say CBDC, which is central bank digital currency, right, which would be owned and operated by the central bank. Here again in the United States, they've outlawed that, right? They passed legislation until 2030. The Fed isn't allowed to launch a CBDC. When I say CBDC at this point, I'm really, again, talking about digital dollar. It could come in the form of a CBDC or a stable coin or something else, right? A Trojan horse CBDC. But yeah, it could happen that way. I think that ultimately they're going to want adoption. I think they're going to want people to want to use the CBDCs. I think they're going to offer some kind of free money, right? They're going to say, oh, here, if you sign up for this or if you get this or you convert into this, we'll give you X amount. That's what they did in China. They gave their citizens, right, free money. And then guess what? There's an expiration date. Oh, and there's a negative interest rate. Not to mention, right, it could be tied to your social credit score. So spooky. Spooky. All right, let's see. What else? Taylor, do you believe a dollar reset is a long process or it may happen suddenly? Lean Drabello. Both. And let me explain why. A reset is a process, right? We're living through one now. Again, starting with total fiat currency control. When they took us away from this and off of this and into something that has no true store of value, that's stage one. Into inflation, right? That's when they can print inflation. That creates a wealth transfer from the many to the few. That's what's happening. When your purchasing power is declining, okay, that doesn't mean that your money, your wealth, whatever you want to call it, is disappearing. It's being transferred right now, okay? It's being transferred. That's what's happening. It goes to the money printers, okay? Those closest to the source, those with assets, they're going to be the ones who come out on top, while the majority continue to lose, okay? So that's a process. Now, the actual event of a reset, we're talking about reset day here, is that announcement, the official decree, where someone comes out on your television. Again, they won't call it a reset, but they're going to call it something to stabilize the system, to save the currency. And that is reset day. And that's where they're going to say, oh, we're launching, dollar 2.0, right? In Mexico, it went from peso to the nuevo peso, right? They come up with these names. In Venezuela, they try to sell it as like the strong bolivar. They always have some spin on it. But essentially what it is it's worth less. So it'd be a revaluation. So it's both, if that makes sense. Let's see. Inflation equals transfer. Yes, that is true. Okay, perfect. Law's already been written for this. Yes. Okay. Awesome, you guys. Well, any other burning questions for me while you have me on this live? I just want to take a second and send them in. I'll look at them. But I just want to say you guys have been amazing. As always, I love these lives so much. You guys are seriously the best. It's just so fun to be able to come on and actually engage with you. If you guys are loving the live too, send a little heart or a thumbs up. Yeah, I see Edgar, the man behind the magic. You guys can't see him, but he is my wonderful producer, editor. He's the one throwing those little comments in there. Let me know. Good group. Yes, it is my ounces. Thank you so much. All right, ITM. Let's see. Dear Taylor Kenny, you're the best in ITM. Thank you. I appreciate it. Awesome live chat. That's great. I love that. Oh, that was you. That's great, you guys. Amazing. Oh, we got the crabs back. Thanks to the carnation crew. I'll get the lingo, you guys. Not to sound like a boomer, but thank you guys. I know I'm like, I'll get with it with the crab. All right, let's see. Love you, Penny. Crustacean Army. There we go. Thank you, my ounces, for letting me know. All right, perfect. Thank you for your time. No, you guys, seriously, thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys taking the time to be with me here today. I know everyone's busy. There's a lot going on. Trust me, there's a lot going on, so I appreciate it. Larry, Taylor, can you give us a teaser on what's to come in the next rush hour segment? Love you in it. Larry, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. We love doing those gold rush hours. To be honest, this Sunday, Eric and I went back to basics. We just talked again about what's going on with the debt, with inflation, and some common questions we got. I pulled actually some of our top questions from YouTube, so we answered some of those too at the end. Eric asked me to do a rapid fire, so we did some of those. So if you guys have questions too that you want us to do on the next gold rush hour, throw them in the comments on that. Thank you from Norway. Silver Serpent, trying to get me to drive again. I'm sure I will at some point. Shotgun Sushi. Yes. Wealth transfer. All right. Many thanks to you guys. Awesome, you guys. All right. Well, I think then we're going to call this a wrap. But again, shout out to all of you. I appreciate you guys so much for being here. And can't wait for the next live. We'll do this again in a couple of weeks. I'm sure there will be no shortage of things to talk about. So thank you all again so much. And until next time, bye, you guys.